The Central Authority, Deepwoken's largest military group and the dominating power in Lumen, with the biggest army and some of the strongest military group members. In today's video, I'll be covering all of the new lore involving the Central Authority involved in their recent update. For those of you who haven't, go watch my faction lore video to learn all of their lore made before this update, as this video will only be covering the new NPCs and lore additions added to the game. Along with that, I'm live at twitch.tv/Reaconteur, so go watch me live over there right after this video, and let us get straight into it. Now, this update has some massive additions to it as far as the lore goes. We finally have identified Warden Jericho, an important NPC within the game who is likely going to be a major quest giver in time due to his currently unreleased oath known as War Master. But also, we do in fact have information on Warden Jericho that was previously in the game through his journal, which can be found in the Tomb of the Nameless Warrior. So along with that and Warden Jericho, we are also introduced to the new characters Inquisitor Chud Steele, Sentinel Augustus, the High Inquisitor Murray, and the Drill Sergeant Colonel, who I will all be covering today. First of all, we have Drill Sergeant Colonel, the first one that you will meet. Now, immediately, Sergeant Cornelius Colonel Sr. is the father of Private Colonel, who was introduced to us in the Titus update, and he is also heavily inspired in his dialogue by the soldier from TF2, as well as just general American drill sergeant, you know? Now, the clearest example of this inspiration with the soldier in TF2 would be in his negative rep dialogue, where before jailing you, he states, "If the gods wanted you to live, they would not have created me," which is a direct quote from the soldier.
If God had wanted you to live, he would not have created me!
But along with that, he talks like a sporadic drill sergeant, which is to be expected. Now, he doesn't provide too much lore directly and is more of a guiding NPC for the player because he is, you know, the one that you'll be getting your missions from early on, but some quick bits of information regarding the Central Authority's ranking system can be picked up from him, but not too much because most of the division stuff can be learned more so from division captains and other division captains. Next, we have Chud Steele, a pretty important figure. Chud Steele is the face of propaganda for the Central Authority and a new NPC. He is something of a war hero, and despite his best efforts remains at the Inquisitor rank. According to him, the reason for his mid-ranking despite his exploits is because the higher ranking members of the Central Authority believe him being in a non-commanding position is better for morale, as he can join his fellow soldiers in the field and be some sort of beam of hope for them. For this reason, he was stationed in Fort Merritt, where morale has been low in recent times. Chud Steele is one of 16 children, as his family were initially farmers and he grew up as a farmer living in presumably the Central Luminant, but he would serve for most of his time in the Western Luminant, where he would serve alongside his 15 other siblings who would all join the Central Authority alongside of him. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Western Luminant is primarily composed of the Hundreds Legion, who are the sworn enemies of the Central Authority and are more of a rebellion group whose main goal is actually just to take down the Central Authority and stop them from taking over Lumen. Chud Steele likely served there in the still currently ongoing wars for dominance within the Western Luminant between the Authority and the Hundreds Legion. For more information on the Luminants themselves, as well as, you know, the Hundred Legion, go watch the video I made on Luminants or the video I made on factions. Now, Chud Steele is currently serving as the number 2 under Sentinel Augustus and the Shock Trooper Division, also known as the Shock Troop Corps, and his resonance is unknown, but he, as well as all the new NPCs, do have bells. As far as for accolades, Chud Steele is quite the decorated soldier and even tells you some stories, such as when he carried 15 wounded soldiers on his back to home after a medic was killed on field, the time he swam 40 miles in fully plated armor to deliver an important war intelligence message, or the time he moved an entire orphanage building out of the way of a fire, because that's totally more effective than putting out the fire. And while the stories seem unbelievable in-game, something about his charismatic nature inclines you to trust him, and along with his medallions, it is very likely that these stories actually prove to be true. Speaking of medallions and medals, he has 13 Honors of the Sovereign's Awards, 36 Orders of the Revered, and 68 Steel Hearts, which were previously named the Bronze Heart of Valor Award before the reward was named after him for being a true exemplary example of the values shown through these rewards. Now, assuming that these rewards are at all similar to the real-life equivalents that they're seemingly named after and ranked on, the Honor of the Sovereign Award is likely a Medal of Honor or equivalent. However, given the name, I believe it may be a call and mixture of the United States Military Medal of Honor as well as a call to the Legion of Merit Medal, both being given for exceptional service and bravery of different degrees, with the Medal of Honor being the highest award for military personnel in the United States. Assuming that he is using proper military annotation as well when talking about his awards, when not specifically asked about an award, he would list them from the most to the least major, meaning that his 13 Honor of the Sovereign Awards are the highest ranked awards that he has, meaning they do draw more parallel to the Medal of Honor, being the highest he has. This doesn't mean that they're the highest that there are, but given his status, it's likely that they are. Along with that, the 36 orders of the revered medals he has are likely a call to the Distinguished Service Cross, which is a medal given to soldiers who show extraordinary heroism specifically within combat. And while the Medal of Honor can be earned outside of combat for diplomacy and stuff like that, big difference is that the Distinguished Service Cross can only be earned for acts done in combat, which we know Chud Steele has faced. And finally, his 68 Steel Heart Awards are a call to the Purple Heart Medal given to those who are injured or killed in the line of service, and seeing his exploits and his clear battle experience, 68 counts of injury in battle during service doesn't actually sound that unfeasible. As a whole though, Chud Steele is mostly the authorities' golden boy who's meant to be an inspiration to soldiers around him, as he is their #1 wartime hero. However, it is likely that they don't see him as much of a strategist, which is likely why he's still within the soldier rankings rather than an executive or major order ranking of the Central Authority, despite his achievements and status. And also, for some reason, his name is Chud, but I guess in Deepwoken, Chud isn't a word derived from 4chan losers, so it's not that bad. Along with that, he receives massive amounts of fan mail and apparently hate mail, and according to him, he receives about 20 letters per day, and he reads and responds to every single one of them from both allies, fans, and enemies alike. And he is even polite to his enemies as he tries to convert them to join the Authority. Then we have Sentinel Augustus, the main man commanding over Chud Steele and at the top ranking member from the Shock Corps division within the Central Authority. He really doesn't do too much so far and is more of just an NPC providing you with the Shock Corps stuff. However, if you talk to either him or Chud Steele, or really any Authority NPC with bad rep, you do get jailed and sent off to execution, so maybe don't do that. Now, he is the leader of the Shock Corps division, and the Shock Corps division, despite housing the renowned Chud Steele, is a lot darker than you guys would immediately think. The Shock Corps are responsible for peacekeeping, essentially, and serve kind of like the FBI in real-life modern America. The Shock Corps are thundercallers known for torturing and interrogating people using their thunderous abilities, as well as using force to break down protests when necessary within the other Luminants, most prominently probably the Western Luminant. And seeing as how Sentinel Augustus also asks for intel if you're in the leadership division, saying that he will hit them where it hurts, and also telling by the fact that both Sentinel Augustus and Chud Steele are warriors, and also telling by some dialogue which I'll cover later, the Shock Corps, other than being, responsible for interrogations and sort of like information obtaining, they also participate in direct combat whenever possible rather than whenever necessary, meaning they also act sort of like a special operations unit of the military, being frontliners rather than just being interrogation and information based, despite that being what they're notorious for, which is the torture and information extracting of people. Next up is the High Inquisitor Murray and the Inquisitions division, and the High Inquisitor Murray is the most intriguing new NPC in my opinion, and the Inquisitions division is very intriguing as well. First of all, of course, she is, the recruitment NPC for the Inquisitor division. Now, the Inquisitions division is basically the CIA of the Central Authority, focused on intelligence, counterintelligence, and spying, or sending out spy agents, which is why the High Inquisitor Murray wears much lighter armor than most other division leaders, like the Shock Corps or leadership divisions. She also wears a unique blindfold, which is interesting, and she describes the Inquisitor division as the eyes and ears and sometimes the shadow of the Central Authority, confirming my ideas that they are basically an intelligence agency for the Central Authority, and they also operate as assassins or spies. She says that the duties of her division are that of finding information on rivals by any means necessary, which she does in fact allude to as torture as well. And the Inquisition is also actually very private, with very little information about them being publicly known, with her even stating that they're essentially the shadows of the Central Authority, and also not to really talk about them in taverns and stuff outside of the Central Authority, meaning that outside of the higher ranks of the Authority's military, not much is known about the Inquisitions division. Some dialogue given to the other division members also reveals a few things. First of all, she refers to the Shock Corps as frontliners, confirming the information I said about them previously, and secondly, if you're within the leadership division, she refers to her as having agents, or spies, who collect intel discreetly. And most Inquisitors are given code names based on flowers to hide their true names when acting as spy agents. Due to Murray's rank, she is just known as the High Inquisitor Murray and doesn't actually have one of these flower code names because she's, I guess, too high profile of an individual, but the other Inquisitors are in fact given code names based on flowers. Now, along with that, she wields and can give you the dagger known as Big Brother if you go through the ranks. The weapon itself is an assassin's dagger, but the name Big Brother is a reference to Big Brother from the George Orwell book 1984. Good read, by the way. Regardless, this name is in reference to Big Brother and the phrase Big Brother is always watching, which is a referential to the fact that the Inquisitions division is an intelligence and security agency who focuses on watching. They watch people, they collect information, right? And then we have the Warden Jericho, the only important lore figure added with this update, who was already previously mentioned and important in the game. As you know, he has his journal which was left in the crypt. I did cover him in my factions video, but now we have a lot of new information on him, such as the fact that he is in fact an Adrit. Initially, it was assumed that he was either an Adrit or a Kanor due to his ranking, but we now have the confirmation of Aspect in this update with his arrival, and we know he's an Adrit. However, we still don't know much about him, as he really doesn't let much of himself shine through as a person, and is more of a commanding authority figure. We know his oath is War Master, but as of now, it is currently not obtainable, but I assume that it's going to be likely obtainable in the future, and we'll probably get more lore involving him. Now, Warden Jericho commands the leadership or commanding division, which is basically the very top of command for, operations. He gives direct orders to the other two divisions, and is a very strategic mind familiar with the inner workings of war. He works directly with the Inquisition's division and gives them commands and missions, as well as the Shock Corps, which he seems to have a more hands-off approach with them when it comes to their actual missions and lets them kind of freestyle stuff, versus the Inquisition's team, where he is actually more direct with what he wants with them, which is interesting. But along with that, he does not directly deal with High Inquisitor Murray, unlike Augustus, who he states is welcome to deliver news to him directly. Not sure why, maybe he just doesn't like her. It's not really explained why, but whatever. I'd likely just assume it's for privacy and security reasons, so they don't want the High Inquisitor, who's generally still somewhat high profile because she's still, a High Inquisitor, but she's still more on the hidden side of things, so they don't really want her seen conversing with other high-ranking officials, which is why I guess she, unlike the Shock Corps leader Sentinel Augustus, just sends messages through her spies rather than directly dealing with people like Warden Jericho herself. But I'm sure we will receive much more lore and characterization revolving around Warden Jericho later on when War Master becomes an obtainable oath, if ever, as he's still kind of a mystery, with most of the information that we obtain on him being stuff that I covered in the last factions video, which is just the stuff that you find in his journal, and how he genuinely sees the Central Authority as peacekeepers who are meant to unite the world, but we don't know if, he's kind of out of the loop, or if he's a little bit insane, maybe a little bit dumb. It's kind of vague. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you all enjoyed. Shout out to you to members of Tier 2 or higher: Brick, Pickle, Goobka, Highcard, Philip, Wizzy My Tizzy, Drizzy Drake Fan, and welcome new members of Tier 2 or higher: Axelor at Tier 2, and new member of Tier 3, Flying Noodle 559. I love both of you, and also I promise new song covers for all the YouTube members of any tier this month, and I'm gonna bring back the monthly song covers, so I'm gonna start doing those monthly now, I promise, okay? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I did want to talk about something real quick. My last video, I actually finally got a response to my ticket. And the mods, they were fucking lazy, so they just went ahead and I'm not going to say which mod, it's a higher ranking mod, but I'm not going to say which to avoid the backlash on them. They just fucking closed my ticket and said I can't have the CC rolled back. Not sure why, because, the action that made me lose my role was appealed for, but whatever. I don't really care that much. It doesn't really change anything. I already have embed and video perms and stuff in there anyway, because I'm level 40, and I had an AI bot running talks for me so I could level up fast. Oops, maybe shouldn't have said that. Anyway, as for the rest of you, I love you all. If I missed any lore, comment on it down below, and maybe I'll make a part 2, because I was kind of trying to get through this a little bit fast, so I didn't get through literally everything. I just went through a lot of dialogue options and stuff I seemed important, and there's probably a lot of subtext that I missed, but I'll cover more if needed. And of course, check me out on Twitch on my live channel. Have an amazing day as usual, and goodbye.